In this video, we're going to take a look at our test review. So if there are any questions that you've struggled with, just scroll through the video till you find the problem you're working on, and you should be able to see the solution for that one. All right, we'll start at the beginning. Number one, just wanting a simple task of finding the slope using 2 points. So when you look at an ordered pair, remember the first number is always x, and the second number is always y. So on the first example here, we see a 4. That's an x value, and that means the first number over here is also an x value. Since this one's listed first, that's x number 1. This would be your second x value here. Keep looking, you have y values. So here's your first y value. Here's your second y value. In our formula, it starts with y number 2. So we'll look over here. Y number 2 has a -2. Minus y number 1 is the next spot, and y1 is lined up with a +1. Your x values, x number 2, your second x is 4. So we'll put a 4 here. Your first x, the last spot is x number 1. That's also 4. If you were to calculate this yourself, the numerator, -2 minus 1, is -3. 4 minus 4 is 0. And while those are the numbers we want, you can't actually divide by a 0. So what we can also see is on the calculator how to do this. So remember, on the calculator, if you type the fraction first, it'll be set up for you. And we have, one more time, -2 minus 1. So I'll put those in, -2 minus 1 over 4 minus 4. And we'll see that my calculator is reminding me that when we had that 0 on the bottom of the fraction, that's actually an undefined slope. So again, pause this video at any time. If I'm going a little fast, that gives you a chance to get caught up and rewatch. But this particular slope that we've got is undefined. Okay. Next, we can look at number 2. We want to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. Notice that first blank is m. We're not told what our slope is on this one right away, so we're going to find m just like we did in problem number 1 using the exact same formula. The only difference in a table is your x's and y's are listed in a column or a row. In this case, we have a column for x. So -4 is our first x. 0 is our second x. When you go to the y's, 20 is our first y, 17 is our second y. So then, just like before, we can put these numbers into our formula. Y number 2 is what we start with. Over here, that's a 17. Y number 1 is a 20, so we can put that here. After that, we have 0 for x number 2, so our second x value is 0. And then our first x value, -4, goes in that last spot there. Again, just looking at the formula and doing that. What I can do now is go back to my calculator, put these new numbers in, and see what we get. So we have 17 here minus 20. And then we have 0 minus -4. So we'll put that in. We have 0 and a -4. It gives us that fraction of -0.75, or the decimal. So remember, there is a fraction conversion. That's the one we want. We're going to work with our fractions here. And we see that decimal of -0.75 is the fraction -3/4. So we get our fraction -3/4. And since that is m, right? That's letter m, that's our slope. That will go in our first blank. After that, we still need b, and b is our y-intercept. And so a little reminder to us is the y-intercept is always with an x value of 0. So if you can find 0 in your table, that means that you're going to be on the y-axis, because 0 is a starting time, and the y-intercept is our starting point. So right next to that 0 is this 17. The y-intercept is always with that number 0, so right away we can see that the y-intercept of this particular line is 17. Okay, so an easy one if we remembered that 0 for the y-intercept. All right, so we used our slope formula a couple of times on those. We're pretty practiced with that. So let's just go to a really basic one. Write a linear equation. Remember, linear means a straight line. A linear equation that has a slope of -3/4. So right away, we see that word slope. Slope of -3/4 right here. We're supposed to remember that slope is represented by the letter m. So as soon as we see the word slope, -3/4, we automatically have this very first spot to fill in. After that, we have the words y-intercept of 5. And again, we want to know what letters we use to represent these things. So if slope is m, that means your y-intercept is b. And if b is 5, then that goes in the last spot right there. So no work there. That is all recognition of those two properties. So our final equation, y equals -3/4x plus 5. Very simple. Number 4, kind of working backwards, we want to make a graph here. We're starting with the equation, so we have to know what our slope is and what our y-intercept is. So the formula is the same every single time, just like we see up here. M is the number before that x. So when we go down here to the bottom, the number with x, that 5, that's your value for m. So if our slope is 5, we can put the 5 in this spot here. The y-intercept is the number at the end. That's -2. So b is that number at the end. The y-intercept can be a positive, can be a negative. We want to pay attention to that. So if I wanted to graph this equation, I'm going to remind myself that the y-intercept is where I start. This is my starting point. And if that's my starting point, then what I'm going to do is go to my graph. Remember that my y-axis is vertical, x-axis horizontal. On the y-axis, I'm going to go down to -2. Then we need another point to graph our line. So we at least have this starting point, and we need to know how far away the next point's going to be. And our slope is trying to tell us that. The top number, this +5, because it's positive, we're going to move up. And we're going to count up 5 units from here. So starting at this -2, we're going up 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines. So I've gone up 5 from here. But I still need to know how far to go over. So our little reminder is, if you just have a whole number for your slope, but you need that bottom number in your fraction, you are always allowed to put the number 1 under that whole number. So this is now telling us that we filled that in. We're going to go to the right 1 unit. So we've gone up our 5. We're going to the right just 1 time. And if you go to the right once, we have a new location. Here's your new point. And now that you have this second point that is up 5 units and over 1 unit, we're ready to draw that line. So there's our last step, drawing this line through these 2 locations. Best that you can here. And we've got it. All right, if we want to add on, good practice would be showing some arrows because the line never stops. But using that y-intercept first to graph a starting point, then using our slope, we can get that line on the grid pretty fast. Okay, another one that we were going to practice. This equation is a little different than the previous one because this equation does not start out as just y equals. We have a -4x and a -3 all before we get to the letter y. So we can practice rewriting this equation, but another thing that we've practiced is using our graphing calculator. So that's the hint on this one. For efficiency's sake, we can try using the graphing calculator here. And if we can do that, one, we should be able to use it to help us create the graph of our line, but then maybe we can also get that slope-intercept equation too. So I'm going to type our equation in, -4x minus 3y equals 12, into the graphing calculator on Desmos. So -4x minus 3y equals 12 makes us a line over here. And if we see our line, remember when we click on our line, it shows us 2 key points, one on the x-axis and one on the y-axis. So you won't see them right away, but when you click on the line, those 2 dots show up. So making sure I typed this in correctly, I did. That means if I want to draw the line, I can show this point on my graph. This one's at negative 3, 0. So going back to my graph, I can put that one down. We have 1 point at negative 3, 0. So I'll show that here. Okay. That's that negative 3 I just saw on my graph. Then I can go and look at the other one. Sorry about that. Look at the other one. It's on the y-axis down at a value of negative 4. So I can also show the point 0, negative 4 on my grid. So going down to negative 4 here. And again, with that graphing calculator to help me, if I can show these 2 points, then I am ready to draw that line. So one last time here, we've got these 2 points. Let's draw a line through them. And there we go. So we got the graph with the calculator. That was pretty quick. Now we still want to talk about this graph. So if we want to write the equation of this line in slope-intercept form, remember that's y equals. But to do that, all we need to know is 2 things. We need to know our slope. We need to know the y-intercept. Well, we can get our slope. If we look at the slope here, remember, it's how far up or how far down it takes to get from one point to the next one. So if I'm looking here, if I start at my first point, I can start thinking, how far down do I need to go to get to that second point? And if I look at this blue line, it looks like I need to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 times to line up with my second point. So I've gone down 4 times. So going down 4 times, that tells me that we have a negative slope because I went down to get from the first point to the next. After that, I can also realize that I need to go over a little bit. And if I look at this orange line here, that shows me I need to go over 1, 2, 3 times. So I had to go to the right 3 times. That means the bottom number of my fraction is a 3. And right away, I've got my slope. It's negative 4 over 3. All right. So we've got our slope, negative 4 over 3. The last thing we need is the y-intercept, but that's the easy part. Again, this is your y-axis. So we're just going to look down our y-axis till we find that point that's on it. This is your y-intercept right here. Okay. That's your y-intercept. And that means that we have a y-intercept value of negative 4. And that's the last one we can put in here. So we can either put plus negative 4, or we could just put the minus. We could say this is the same as just putting y equals negative 4 over 3 x minus 4. Same thing. All right, so let's do that again because we just practiced is actually what we're going to do next. You made a graph by typing the equation of this line in for this one, but let's do the same practice where we have a graph and we make that equation just like we said. So looking at this particular graph here to the right, we see the line is starting high and ending low. That means that we have a decreasing graph. And if it's decreasing, that already tells me my slope is negative. So I can start right there. Getting from one point to the next one should be a pretty easy task on this case. Going from the first point to the next, it looks like I just need to go down 1 time. So we're going down just once here. So there's my top number. That's my rise. I also need to move over, and it looks like, again, that's just 1. So 1 over to the right. And that would be my run. So that would be the bottom number of my fraction. So I can either leave it as negative 1 over 1, but I'm going to remind myself that a whole number over 1 can just be that whole number that we have in the top. So I could just say that this is negative 1. And that lets me put in a pretty easy point right here on my blank for a slope. The y-intercept, remember, that's the point on your y-axis. So if you have a y-axis right here, follow that axis down till you hit this point, and there's our y-intercept. So when we look right there, we can say, okay, I'm on the y-axis. What number is that? If b is my y-axis, I see that we are here at a positive 1. So my y-intercept is positive 1. There's my equation. Y equals negative 1x plus 1. All right, one more just like it. Number 7, new line, but same task. Can we write the equation of this line? So looking at these 2 points, we see a line is starting low, and as we go across, we have to move up to follow that line. So that means this time we have an increasing graph. Because it's increasing, we're going to have a positive slope. So all that's left for us to do is figure out how far apart these 2 points are. So we go up first. How far up do we need to go from our first point to the next? And it looks like this blue line, if I'm checking this blue line, it looks like I have to move up 1, 2, 3 times. And then how far I need to go over, I can check here. From here to here, it looks like I just need to go over 1 time. So going up 3 and over 1. So again, remember, when you go up or down, this vertical motion is always rise. We always run over from one location to another. And so for this one, we have a positive, we have 3 for our rise, we have 1 for our run, and that can be written as just 3. 3 over 1 is a whole number over 1. We can always rewrite that as that whole number. And it's positive, so we can just call it positive 3. That can go in this blank here. The y-intercept is where we are on the y-axis. So again, your y-axis is right in the middle. That vertical axis looks like this is a positive 1. So looking at our graph, we see that b is positive 1 again. And so our equation ends with a plus 1. All right, so I'm going to stop this video here. I'll create a second video where we look at the last 3 questions of your practice test.